So go ahead, Mark. You can.
So it occurred to me that as Shaul and Chana were speaking,
It's on.
that there was something that came to my mind that I just felt like sharing before we actually. The main purpose of our last session of the day is really to give you guys some reflective time. But when they were talking about expectations, and I know that they were trying to make a distinction because there was a good question that was asked about, we do have expectations sometimes, and it's a reasonable thing. And it just occurred to me, and it kind of connects to how we ended our session. We were talking. Somebody asked the question, "Well, why do I do anything?" And I think the way I would put what they were trying to express is there's a big difference between having a preference, wanting something in life, and deciding that I can't be okay without it. Okay? And I think that's what they were trying to say, perhaps. Maybe this is a little bit. In other words, I can have a preference in life. Like I would love my child to come, like to use this example, I love my child to come daven. I'd love to see him, on the road, and I have all sorts of preferences because we do. We obviously do. I have a preference of a clean house. I'm with you on that one. I'm with you. Right? I may really want to. I may like it.
The feeling better that everyone's happy in my house, not mom saying clean up, clean up, clean up. So there are days I'll go with that feeling because it's a nicer feeling that it's a good feeling in the house.
So here's the thing that I want you to consider, which is where we cross the line is when we get to the point of I can't be okay, that my well-being
That's where we get upset.
is tied. It's where we get upset. It's where we go outside in our thinking. In other words, and it really ties to what we were saying at the end of our last session together, which is that people were saying, well, why do I need to do something? What's my motivation? And my point over there was the same. In other words, and I think this is what Ben Zamu was saying, it's not you have to be satisfied, okay? You take pleasure. And there's a difference because you're allowed to want things. Where we cross the line, and this is what the Mishnah is saying, the problem is when what we want gets in the way of enjoying what we have now. That's the real problem. Yeah.
I'm struggling a bit with the distinction between expectations and rules. So let's say I have a rule in my house, we don't use foul language, or you don't come to the table with a sleeveless t-shirt or a t-shirt that has certain kinds of messages. So not an expectation, but that's the rule, right?
Similar, yeah.
And the children, let's say they don't, they don't abide by that rule. So how do I treat that? I mean, I'm not in that stage of parenting where I...
So once again, it's okay to have rules. I mean, it's not just okay, it seems pretty necessary. Our Torah is filled with rules too. No, it's okay to have rules. It's where we cross the line is when we say, if people aren't following these rules, I can't be okay on some level. Somehow my well-being is held hostage to everybody following my preferences and my preferences being met.
Acceptable to me, but I'm okay. Inside I'm okay, but I'm still...
Yeah, this is not what I want, but I don't always have to have what I want to be happy. Is one way
Not
of
only
putting
that's
it.
not, but I'm going to say it's not acceptable. In other words, inside I'm okay. It's not affecting my...
Oh, how you express it, you mean?
How you express it, but externally I'm going to say that's not acceptable. You must...
I think that's
How
permissible.
you actually manage that is a different story, but it is valid to
Yeah.
have that stance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense to me, that you can express it as an expectation and whatnot, yeah.
So let's say you have one child who's bullying another child.
Yeah,
How do you...
exactly. So there would be an example of, I have an expectation that you behave yourself in a proper way and not bully somebody else. And absolutely, as a responsible parent, we would expect that you would, protect the child that's being bullied. Where I think where we cross the line is where we say somehow my state of mind is held hostage to whether people are following these rules. So and so really, in other words, I can be with somebody who's not doing what I'd like them to do, and I could be firm and I could set boundaries, but I can be okay and happy at the same time. I may not be happy with their behavior. I'm not approving of their behavior. Yeah. So what we would like you to see is, believe it or not, there's nothing out there in the world that determines your inner state. But that's really a separate issue. but in a sense, it's really not, because the truth is when we see that, when we see we can be okay, even when our expectations aren't met, this is one of the ironies of life. You know, it says, you know, he who chases after covet runs away from you. It's one of those things. The less I need you to be a certain way for me to be okay, the more likely you will be, by the way. That's the beauty of it. That just so happens to be the case. The less I need you to, you know, do X for me because otherwise I can't be okay, that's the greatest chance that people will actually, because when we need, we come after people, right? We become evangelists. We become needy, and people don't usually respond well to that. They usually run the other way, just like covet. Yeah.
I want to ask you about physical well-being. Like, let's say a person can't take cigarette smoke, and they're in a train where they can't get up. Everybody is, so there's an expectation, let's say, that people will follow the no smoking rule, but my well-being is dependent on people not smoking.
That's a physical, you mean like you're allergic to it or something?
Right, when there is a physical, when there is something physical, I can see this word emotional.
Take care of yourself. Yeah, well, if you have a physical need, then take care of it. I mean, it seems, you know, common sense to me. I mean, don't ignore that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm talking more about the emotional component of it. So I just thought that might be helpful. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, common sense. If I like the common sense thing. If it's not working out as common sense, then you can dismiss it.
What if it's just irritants? If they don't have any particular allergies, but people smoking just really, like I used to smoke and so I'm extra sensitive to it, and now it's very irritating. It makes it a little hard for me to breathe, but it's not. I don't have any asthma. I don't have any allergies, but.
So I've got a question for you, okay? And this is really what this final session is for. I don't want to talk anymore, okay? So I'd really like to know what you heard about what we were saying today. What would you have said about that situation before you walked in today, and what do you see about that now? So you've got, I'm asking you, not what you think we would say, but what do you see about somebody who they're irritated by cigarette smoke? How does that look to you now? Where does that come from, that irritation?
I guess it seems like a selfish and inconsiderate act on their part. And then on top of it, whatever emotional thing is going on there, there's a little bit of a physical component going on by me also. So I'm not just emotionally irritated, but I'm also physically irritated. So they kind of feed back, to make me all together very irritated.
So this is a great example. Like I'd love to hear, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong answer to this question. I really want to know what you guys have seen about if you were presented with a situation where someone is smoking in your face, puffing away. So, Mayor, what do you see about that?
So
Differently.
So based on
This would be just for you. This is just what you see.
If I was in that situation, that I would feel very physically and emotionally disturbed by a lot of people smoking, and it doesn't no smoking sign. I guess I would translate that to say that I have my thoughts are that it is first of all, I'm feeling physically uncomfortable, and by the smoke, and my thoughts are that someone has to be an inconsiderate person to be smoking in this situation. My thoughts are that it makes me uncomfortable when people are doing such a behavior in the circumstances, and therefore I'm likely to be disturbed.
So would you say that you understand why you're disturbed?
I'm disturbed because I happen to be thinking thoughts, which I and emotions are a perspective which makes me become insecure.
Does
Do I
it-
understand it? Certainly, I probably don't understand it fully, but to a certain extent, yeah.
Anyone else have? Yeah.
It would bother me that a person doesn't care about the rules.
About,
The rules.
and where would you say you understand that bother is coming from? What creates that bother? That
So,
feeling of being bothered?
That's in my thinking, right? Because I thought that. I mean,
Right.
someone can, just because it's a sign doesn't mean someone doesn't listen that they're bad.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah?
I might be able to focus more on not personalizing, because taking myself out of the equation, I recognize that someone's doing something which is inconsiderate and against the rules, but it's not like I'm going to say, look at what they're doing to me, frustration, and I think that when one personalizes a perceived insult or disrespect, then it becomes much more painful. And so therefore, okay, they have a problem, I have a choice, I'm not gonna change them, I can mention it, I can walk away, or I can stay here. But it's, it's not directed toward me, even though the smoke is.
That's cool. I love that. Nothing changes, yet everything changes. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there's an important distinction that none of these scenarios doesn't mean we have to do schmata, doesn't mean we can't assert our rights. It's more about the recognition, like Stu was saying, recognize that it's my thoughts that are determining how I feel right now and how I feel like responding, and kind of separating that from what might still be a valid response. So we might still take the same exact action, we might assert our rights, we might even do so as the situation demands in a forceful manner or assertive manner at least, but at the same time being mindful of that distinction that I'm in total control. It's not this person that's causing me to break out into a rage. I'm in control of how I respond.
Yeah. Just by simply understanding.
Right.
You get all that, you all of a sudden have all that, how do you say, freedom? Yeah, leeway to take it personally or not. Like you can suddenly see that, oh, I've been taking this personally. Doesn't necessarily.
I think that was a little danger in how their message was presented, I think. At one point, it sounded almost like they were saying you should tolerate abuse because, you made this decision that you're going to love this person regardless of what they do, which could be a slippery slope, I think, if it's not properly clarified, that doesn't mean you should ever tolerate abuse from another person.
Yeah, so like sometimes there'll be a lion coming at me.
Yeah.
And I'll get a fright. Well, I'm committed to feeling
Right.
love towards all towards all creation. Come here, lion. let's hug it out. It's not going to work. All right. Common sense. We're back to that common sense thing, right? Common sense. Yeah.
I think the awareness that, wait, this is, what am I thinking right now that's making me so upset? And if I can stop and think about what I'm thinking, then maybe I can also think, when I was that age, how much noise we were making. It was the neighbor's problem that they couldn't deal with our music. It was like, I can think about more, because I'm thinking about my own thinking, and I can also remember, what was I thinking when I was that age? Did I say this there? Like, and then it's not about me, it's about that
Yeah.
helps me to.
It's a natural.
To have a reasonable expectation rather than unreasonable.
To be less impulsive about responding.
Yeah.
Because I already taken a pause to say, what am I thinking? And then, wait a second, I remember, the music that we blasted from our house, and we didn't really think at all about the neighbors around us who didn't like it, not that their problem, and mean, that kind of thinking
It's fascinating.
more through about all different things instead of just my one thought, because now I know it's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting, you just see the whole direction of where you're looking changes. You know, we're so caught up with all the stuff out there, and once you realize that it's not the stuff, where does your attention go? It goes to you. Right. Become a lot more aware of yourself.
Yeah, it's really cool when you've been thinking something for many, many years, and then you no longer think it. So it's kind of like, you know, you've kind of like got a bookshelf, and there's a bunch of books, and you take one book, you throw it out. Well, you got a spot there for another book. And the way it works is that another book's going to come in. You're not really sure what it might be. Often what it is compassion in a place where you thought that there was no place for compassion, or there's understanding where there was before no room for understanding. It's the natural progression. As human beings, our natural progression is as we drop thinking. Well, as thinking drops, there suddenly becomes space for something new.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you go back to default, into
Yeah.
your default thinking? That you said
Yeah, and it's an interesting question because there's a lot of theories out there. As Tzvi said, there's millions of theories, or millions, but many, about, you know, where the
480.
cause is 480 and counting. There's a
Counting.
clock in Times Square, I think, just constantly. A lot of them are so preoccupied with, oh, you were taught to think, you know, your family of origin and all that, and I'm not here to tell you that that's not entirely false. There's no question that our things influence the way we think, and that our family of origin might be. We have, but really the truth is we have, you know, thought comes through us, and sometimes we have habits about thinking. I think it's more accurate to look at it that way. So yeah, you fall back into some bad thinking habits, but by the same token, what we're seeing is that you're also free to learn some new thinking, or to experience some new thinking. When you start to get a little bit of humility about your thinking habits. When you're convinced that they're God's gospel, you're not likely to let go of them so fast. But when you start seeing, you know, that you may not have all of reality wrapped up, then it opens things up, and that's what I found. It opens things up. But yeah, thought habits in general, sometimes take a while to die.
Well, the other thing I wanted to add on that is that I'm going to feel whatever thinking I'm being given in the moment. And if right now, sitting here in front of you, it looks pretty clear that my experience of life is coming from thought and consciousness powered by mind, well, great, that's nice. That does not mean that in 10 minutes from now, I can have that completely pulled from me, and I'll be full of blame and anger and disappointment. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it sounded like you were asking, like, is there some place where you reach where you never have to worry about that ever again? I finally arrived. It's so nice up here. Oh, what, I'm not alive anymore? Like, that's when it happens, okay? Afterlife. That's when you've arrived. Until then, you're going to feel your thinking. You don't know what you're going to think in the next moment. How could you know what it's going to be? It hasn't come yet. You're going to feel it. And sometimes it's going to be so dark and low and lost that you're going to completely forget the presence of God in your feeling in the moment, and you're going to suffer as a result. As I do, every now and then, maybe more often than I'd like to admit. This is not some cure. We're not suggesting that we're curing you from ever having to go through that again. But like Mitch pointed to, and some of you also pointed to, this is about understanding what's been happening your whole lives and getting on board with it as opposed to fighting it. So if this is putting more in your mind, if this is like, okay, I gotta keep on remembering mind, consciousness, and thought, right? And put it on sticky notes and listen to DVDs all day and beat yourself up when you've lost it, then you haven't understood it. And when I do that, that means that I haven't understood it. I've lost my understanding. So the only thing that I see about grounding is that the more we kind of hear that, the more that hits home, the less we freak out when we've lost sight of it for a little while. We've done some things that we kind of are embarrassed of, or know we shouldn't have, or we know we're better than that. Yeah.
Another way of saying that is we're really not here to change your experience. If anything, we're here to change your relationship with your experience.
It just seems to me that we're always going to be going inside out and outside in, you know, and the more we sort of understand that, the less we freak out when, like you were saying, I think, about having bad feelings. And I was thinking that maybe it's not so much bad feeling as much as it's outside in. You know, and so the whole range of feeling is created through thought. And sometimes I'm outside in and I kind of think that my experience is coming from something other than my thought. I think it's coming from somewhere outside, or even from the content of my thought. And sometimes I'm really kind of centered in the, oh wow, you know, what's my thinking doing here right now?
Yeah.
So it's part of being human. I don't think it's so much like I'm on the how do I want to say, like this is good and this is bad. It's kind of like the whole, this is how my experience is being created, whether I like that experience or not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Boss is, she's jumping way ahead of us. This is not good.
No, I describe it, I never went on an airplane until I was 18 years old. And the first time I went on an airplane, it was like a 19-seat jet in turbulence, and we hopped. We didn't fly, we hopped. And it's a great story, but anyway, but needless to say, turbulence to me seemed like basically imminent death. Okay? And then the next time I went on an airplane, it was like one of these big giant, jets, and I was like jumping up and down like it's not moving, So one way of looking at it is it's kind of like we experience turbulence inside of ourselves, and that happens. It's part of flying. It's part of life. But when you don't understand what turbulence is, it's pretty darn scary. That's all. So it's like I've started just come to see, I'm having a little bit of turbulence in my life. And the plane never really seems to crash, at least in my case. Yeah.
Now, the only thing I'd add to that, and what I heard from what Basi was saying, was that yes, it's we're human, so we go up and down. But it sounded to me, at least when I was listening to Basia, that she saw something about the downs that made them exactly the same as the ups. And that I don't kind of want to get into the detail of that and kind of prove it to you. Like, what do you mean? One's bad, one's good. No? Well, no, they're all true. They're all divine, whether you can see them or not. Even your experiences that are embarrassing or full of anguish and distance, those two are generated by God for you through thought and consciousness. It's all one. Now, it's a point that I'd like to get into tomorrow a little bit more, and we can kind of hack away at it. But that's what I heard in what you were saying.
And can I say one more thing? I know I'm jumping, but I can't help it. You know how I had this thought recently that we talk about going up and down, and now I'm kind of seeing it like we go in and out. Not so much we go up.
Nice.
We go in
That's
and
very
out.
good, yeah.
Mm.
Same level.
It feels like I'm going up and down, but really I'm going in and out.
I've never heard that
Cool.
before. That's beautiful.
That's really good.
That's very nice. I think Mrs. Goldstein had a question. I saw your hand up.
Okay.
We're going to let you cap off today, so make it a good one.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do.
Don't feel any pressure, though. It's just that we're
You
all
could-
looking at you
let-
waiting.
Expectations, Rochelle.
Let me help you. You could just say that you love us and that we're awesome. Or you can ask a question.
We wouldn't want to script you, though.
Go on, go on.
I just wanted to go over some things that
I got out of the
Beautiful.
phone, and which I think I'm good to talk about. They mentioned about winding up in a bad place, because as I have learned, and I was talking to one other woman about, when you get angry with someone, they say something to you or whatever, then you start to think of all these other faults they have and all these other supposed, imagine, not really true crimes they've committed, and you're off. And your mind gets sucked into this and it limits you. And sometimes then horrible things get said that you cannot pull back out of the air. They're out there. And this is what happens. And the rabbi never wanted to be in a place like that. He would rather opt for, good feelings and love, and that's how he deals with these things. There's ways to deal with that anger, One way is to realize the expectation that this person is this certain way and not the way you suppose and want them to be. Some of the things they say to you, I know what abuse is and I have to learn. Some of the things people say to you that are harmful, that is not you. And you know that's not you. That is not me. I don't know who you're talking about, but that's certainly not me. And my thought, I had to learn my thought pattern is not to absorb that and to think clearly and not to judge. Like with the person blowing smoke in your face, I would cough my head off, it would make me cough. And yes, it's normal and human, I would be annoyed at that person. But I'm not going to take it personally. My option's going to be, I'm going to leave. Then let him smoke his head off and get cancer too bad for him. I'm leaving. I have grandchildren to worry about. So, there's other ways to think of things and handle things. And where do you want to be in that situation? How do you want to deal with and think about that situation? And that's what I got a lot out of her. Not just the expectations, but how do you handle, so do you want to go down the road where you're depressed and you're angry and you can spend weeks justifying all that or feeling miserable about yourself because this person said all these horrible things to you, and where do you want to be in that? What do you think about yourself? What are your thoughts doing for you in relation to all that?
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay, is that all right?
That is beautiful. And we have to end with that, I'm sorry, because that was just great. But I just want to let you know that...
With some direction or whatever?
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. For those of you who are coming back tomorrow and not staying here tonight, do not think about this. Okay? Don't think about it at all and try to figure it out. Don't try to share it with anybody. Really, just have a nice ride home. Enjoy the scenery or the traffic, which can be done. If you did not sign up for tomorrow and you decide to come back, you can decide tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Come out here. There's breakfast at 8. And you can just, when you register, just make sure you register with Rifki if you didn't register for today. For those who are staying tonight, all of you are welcome to stay for dinner. It's downstairs now at 5:15. And there's an evening program at 8 o'clock back here. We're going to be showing a surprise video. We don't know what it is yet.
Stay, whether you spend the night or not, you can
Yeah.
stay for the whole evening.
Enjoy the grounds.
Right.
You don't have to, scurry away back to the city folk. You
Breakfast
can just
is
stay
8 to
here.
10.
And okay, good. That's good to know. Breakfast is 8 to 10.
What time are we starting tomorrow, 10?
Tomorrow, I think we called it for 9:45.
9:45?
9:45. Yeah. Any questions about what to do? the answer should be nothing.
What's our homework?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Your homework.
Nothing.
Have a nice time. Anything you want to add, Mark? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy yourselves.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.